Here we go. Okay, so welcome to Fiona. She is an internationally renowned speech and drama trainer, but she is particularly good at training businessmen to look good. For those of you that have listened to my jokes for the last 8 weeks and haven't laughed, you may feel this session is 8 weeks too late, but trust me, it will be of good value to you and also to me. So Fiona, off you go. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to say. For the rest of you, please do remember that you're live on channel 4, so please do not swear.
Thank you very much, Alan, and good morning to everyone. It's really exciting to have so many of you in the room, in the Zoom. So Alan asked me if I would present on presenting, and I just want to acknowledge up front, my goal is to get you thinking. I'm not going to spend ages talking about it. And I want to also acknowledge that public speaking is terrifying for a lot of people. So other people jump at the opportunity and then realize that it's huge and they've bitten off more than they can chew. So there are extremes when it comes to it, and many of us sit somewhere in the middle. So to get you thinking, I want you to imagine, I did ask Alan if you could have a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil handy. That will really help you, because I'm going to get you to do a little bit of work. I want you to imagine that Alan phones you up and asks you to present next month on a topic that he believes you've got expertise in. 20-minute speaking slot next month. So assuming that you say yes, I want you to jot down the first 3 to 5 things you think or feel or do first. So you might have a complete blank at this point in time. You might say, I've no idea. Write that down. So maybe you'll think of what you've done when you've had positive feedback, or what you do differently if you've had negative feedback. Maybe draw on when you've been asked to prepare for a slot at a meeting recently or in the past. So how would you approach it? What would you do? What questions would you ask? So I'm going to give you another minute just to do that. And if you're feeling courageous, I'd invite you to put one of them or your top one in the chat box, but no pressure, guys. Great, I'm seeing that. I'm just going to check. I think everybody's lifting up their heads, so I think everybody's had a chance. And this is based on the fact that everything we do is based on the thinking that we do first. So I just wanted you to get your thoughts. Alan, do we have anything in the chat box that people have been brave enough to share?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Everyone's coming into the chat box. So Hannah Jago, for example, first thing I think is thanks for the opportunity. Second was, yes, I'd love to do that. I was similar. Graham Dawson, he would think of an appropriate story. Andrew Scott, who you probably know quite well, would think of content. Val King, I'd accept and then ask what are the needs of the audience. Chris Badger would look at the previous presentation he'd done. Michael Wean, I've loved talking and I have a couple of topics I can cover. Daryl was saying, I'm up to week 3 of this 6-week webinar series. Okay. Harry Goodman, define one subject and write a script. Get a haircut, Harry. I don't think you need a haircut. Okay. Get a better camera and mic. Mary Thomas, yes for me, no problem. Thanks. What points do you want the audience to take away? James Gunn, audience needs. Tim Race, yes, I'd love to do it, and then think about what to say. So quite a lot of content coming back.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you very much for that. Thanks for participating. So, what do you consider, you've just answered that, when presenting remotely? Outside of saying yes, what's the next thing you focus on? What I want to do is just in terms of the ground rules of the session, because you're going to go into breakout rooms shortly and have a discussion and come up with some ideas and some questions, is that when it comes to any of this, especially as it's all on Zoom now, is that we need to approach it with compassion, with humility, and with generosity. It takes courage to present online. Somebody needs to go on mute. I think there's some background noise that's coming through and interfering. Thanks very much.
Mute everyone, so okay,
Thank
and then you can unmute people if needs be. There we go. Off you go, Fiona. Oh, unmute Fiona.
Oh.
There we go. Off you go, Fiona.
Am I unmuted? Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's important to approach this and go into this with compassion for others, with humility, and with a generous spirit. And I hope that that's what I am going to do in the next few minutes. So I'm going to give you another exercise. I want you to draw on a piece of paper a stick figure. That's you, the speaker. This is, men and women have a right to wear a skirt, so you can give the figure a skirt if you want. A speech bubble, which is the content of what you're going to say, and then your audience. Or if you prefer to think of this in a Zoom context, you could do something like that. But what I'd like you to do is thinking about what your priorities are and knowing that you're important, you really matter, you've been asked to do this talk, your message is very important, your content, and your audience is very important. Write next to those on your piece of paper, what is number one, what is number two, and what is number three in terms of priority. So you could say your speakers first, you could say the messages first, you could say the audiences first, then what comes second, and then third. And I'm just going to look down and see when everybody's had a chance to consider and write. So, can I have, may I ask 3 people, and if people decide to say not to contribute, then that's fine. Harry, you're right under Alan on my screen. Who did you put 1, 2, and 3?
Audience was 1, message was 2, and speaker was 3.
Right. And Christopher, what did you think? You're on mute, Christopher.
Sorry.
I haven't listened.
Sorry, you're unmuted, Chris.
I didn't write it down. Sorry, I was disturbed by my son asking something.
That's no problem. And is that Nikki with the long hair?
Yeah, that's me. I went slightly differently. So I said speaker first, and just ensuring that the speaker's comfortable with what they're talking about and they're the best person to be talking about that subject if it's been asked of you, and then audience, and then takeaway.
Very good. Thank you very much. And have I asked 2 or 3 people?
Yeah. Maybe one more.
Okay. What about Neil? What did you think? If you take yourself off mute.
I'm actually doing quite a lot of online training anyway, rather than the face-to-face training. And during the first session, one of the first questions I will ask is, what are your difficulties in terms of keeping up with your studies?
Okay.
So that gives me a bit of background. Then I would be asking how I can help, or how they're hoping I
Sorry,
can help.
Neil, if I can just ask you, in terms of the figures that I've drawn, what do you put first, second, and third? Speaker, content, audience.
Audience.
And second?
Well, it'd be speaker.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that.
Sorry.
All right, so I've been doing this about 20 years, and my experience has been over those years, a lot of people who come to me because they're terrified of speaking, and they get promoted, they're in STEM industries, and as soon as they get promoted, they have to do public speaking, and they're completely out of their comfort zone, and they really, really struggle. And so over the years, I realized that what they were missing out on is the fact that it's not about them, that actually they don't need to worry, that they can relax. Because when it comes to the message, the audience, the speaker, what needs to come first and what will help inform everything else is your audience. And actually, even when I deal with confident speakers who are very assured, if the planning and preparation stage do not reflect a focus on the audience, who they are, what their needs are, then you're not going to get the rest right. And if you do, you're not going to connect and engage your audience. What comes second is the message, because when you know who your audience is and what their needs are, what their pains are, as Neil correctly said, that's going to inform your message. When you know where your audience is, you're going to know about the challenges of the room or the Zoom. And then thirdly is you, the speaker. So you are very important, but in the three important things, you come third, and you become the servant of the message, delivering and embodying the message to an audience, because you've spent time asking yourself, what do they need to hear? What have I got that they need to know? Not thinking about, I know all this stuff and I'm going to tell them because they need to know it. It's about fine-tuning our message and our preparation so that it puts the audience at the very heart of our talk. And then coming into that with humility and generosity and delivering that message to our audience. And that can look very different in many different guises. But actually, an audience doesn't need technical training, but an audience knows when they matter. And by the same token, they know when they don't matter, and they will not engage and connect with a speaker who doesn't have them at the center and the heart of what they're doing. And I know that Val was able to answer this question very easily, because she actually has worked with me. So thank you, Val, for having the right answer. It means that you listened. So what I want to do, I just thought I'd keep it really simple, because I found out from Alan at the very beginning of preparing this who was likely to turn up in the audience, who you are and what matters to you. But I haven't had a chance to speak to any of you to find out what you want to know on this subject today. So I think it's appropriate to break out into chat rooms now and to ask yourself, to chat to each other and share a few questions. What do you want to see from others when they present remotely? Let's focus on that today. What in particular resonates with you so far and challenges you? And then what questions do you still have? And what I'd like is if each group can come up with 2 questions that they'd like to ask me, it means that when we come back into the main room, if someone else asks the question you have in mind, you still have a reserved question that you can ask. Does that sound good to everyone?
That sounds really good.